April 30th, 2025. That's the lower red bar. And that reporting, I certainly appreciate her comment to align that with the EPA reporting. I don't see a problem with that. I think that makes complete sense. This reporting is more significant than the EPA requirement, so it does require additional detail, but I fully support aligning that with the EPA. Moving on, the rulemaking timeline would be July 1st, 2025. So that's amending the rules to clarify that net gain policy, that statewide policy of net gain that we currently don't have. Following that, in 2026, January 1st, the Vermont Significant Wetlands Mapping Update. So that would be the first one, and then it would occur annually thereafter. And I appreciate Secretary, just a note about the mapping piece. I appreciate Secretary Moore's comment about the mapping. In fact, when we first wrote this bill as H30, the wetland map, that was before the governor's budget had addressed some of the mapping piece. So yes, some of this mapping is happening now, and that's really exciting. But this requires an additional amount of tracking and alignment. So yes, we're requiring national wetlands inventory mapping for the whole state. And as you could see, there's a contract already in place for that work to be done by 2025. That's the last thing in my timeline, is that January 1st, 2030 NWI mapping update. So that, and I'm switching back and forth on the mapping here because they're tied together a bit. But so yes, this bill and this policy proposes more than that, because it's actually requiring that mapping to then be updated every 5 years concurrently with the basin plan. And I think that's really important, because it's when we have wetlands change, so wetland delineations need to be updated every 5 years. They can be very ephemeral. And when we don't have accurate information, mistakes happen. Well, why that just happened?
Judy, sorry.
So it looks like it's
Back on. Oh, I don't think
I didn't touch any.
No, I don't think you did it, just.
just a bullet.
You just have to. I don't know what you're in the room, it looks like your screen.
Yeah,
sharing.
it's coming back. I think it just.
switching.
Computer besides. Honest, it's a good thing.
So that NWI plus mapping goes above and beyond what is currently happening, in that we have those updates continuing into the future on a 5-year basis. And then related to that, the Vermont Significant Wetlands Inventory mapping will be updated annually. So, and that includes more than just the NWI plus mapping that's happening across the state. And you saw the time frame in the slide that Secretary Moore proposed. But it also includes municipal mapping. So certain towns have conservation commissions that have contracted consultants to do even like a more detailed wetland mapping within that town. So those would be brought in. Delineations that are subject to permitting would also be brought in. So we're requiring that Vermont Significant Wetland and the advisory layer to be updated annually as new information comes up. So it's just a higher level of tracking and accountability. And I think with that, I don't have, I'm just wanting to make sure I address everything. Oh, the public notice, there was a comment made from Secretary Moore about the public notice piece. I think that public notice is important, but happy to look into that requirement if it's too laborious, the public notice piece for the wetlands change, that's fine. And we support the need for the additional staff. I think it's really great to have more staff within the wetlands program, and this is more work. We recognize that. And I think it's really important work. We need to recognize the important value wetlands provide to society at large and invest in that resilience. So with that, I don't have any more comments.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That move to Ms. Phillips. How much time do you need? How much time do you need?
2 minutes.
Oh, okay, great.
No, well, your section
As
was,
much as I
your
can.
section was the most discussed. I think I can come back on. That's not true. We did have good things.
Okay,
Anyway, good morning
Good
again.
morning. For the record, Lauren Oates, Director of External Affairs with the Nature Conservancy in Vermont. I tried to take as many legible notes for myself during testimony to respond to, so I'll try my best now, but do want to acknowledge that it will be really helpful probably for all three of us to see the red line version, so we can understand the
Sure.
specifics of what's being proposed to respond to,
Yeah.
and then we can do that.
Right, and so, don't feel rushed to be getting through all of it. I know that we just heard a whole long presentation and will provide time for, a thorough response and, but as soon as we have the red line, as well as the proposal of their language sort of drafted from scratch, we'll have both of them on our website.
That's great, that'll be really helpful for us. So I think I'll start with areas of strong agreement with what I just heard. And start again with the commendable work of the state employees that do the work that has been described over the course of several weeks of testimony in S213. Having been one of them, I worked deeply with Rebecca and Rob in the trenches following disasters, and it is a significant time burden and workload that is put on agency staff every time these disasters happen. To your question earlier, Senator White, the disasters are happening on like 1.4 to 1.6 flood related disasters. That doesn't account for like wind and snow related damages, which we do get disasters occasionally annually. Not that that's we can expect that every year, but that is the historic, at least this century, what we've received each year. I also agree that whatever is recommended or proposed in S213 does need to carry the appropriate appropriations. So that these staff who are already overburdened are not asked to do even more with less. I really feel strongly, again, my past testimony has said that Vermonters' lives, homes, schools, businesses, roads depend on this, that they are appropriated to carry forward this increased regulation. As do the taxpayers of Vermont. You've heard me say several times over that flood-related disasters are costing Vermonters tens of millions of dollars annually to recover from this. And as you discuss appropriations and as you look through the governor's budget, year over year, we keep pouring more and more money into the Vermont buyout program. That buyout program is a necessary tool to help flood damaged homes and homeowners in Vermont, but it also is not a sustainable solution. More than 10,000 homes in the floodplain. More keep getting built each year because we are allowing development in these high hazard areas. So at some point in time, we need to recognize that conservation is critical. I work at the Nature Conservancy, I understand that. Conservation in the absence of regulation is insufficient when it comes to our flooding problem. Part of the reason why capacity is so challenged is because we haven't changed our regulation. Because we have so much damage every time. Staff and DEC reverse programs have to go out and respond to, help municipalities, work with the regional planning commissions, from whom we've heard several times over, kind of navigate this. If there were fewer damages, if we stopped building in these areas, there would be significantly reduced taxpayer burden and capacity needs. Let's see here. I heard a quote from the secretary that this would be an extensive undertaking. Yeah, it is. And yet, we are currently asking our towns to take this on. This is an expensive undertaking that they are currently trying to navigate. And you heard from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, you heard from the regional planning commissions, that they are not doing it well. They are not resourced appropriately. They do not have the technical expertise, nor the time, nor the political will, nor the social capital, et cetera, to really navigate this well. So that extensive undertaking is falling on all of our towns and our volunteer town staff.
Can you remember, I'm trying to remember, Tim Brady was in, and I think he I'm not trying to feed a line, I'm just trying to remember because I think I heard the secretary talk about potential for pushback from the LCT and municipality. But the thing that stuck with me a little bit from Mr. Brady being was, he said, I don't usually ever say this, but I think that we're looking for a larger role on the part of the state to manage the area.
Yeah, his testimony, he supported this portion of the bill
I don't,
as drafted. Yeah, and I think he called it, and I know you had a response to it, Senator Watson, so maybe you can remember, but I think he called it the silent or free labor of our towns, that's following other towns that they go to their 40 hours a week job, they come home at night, they go to their volunteer meeting, and then they come home and try to figure out what they do with all of that information between like kids' bedtimes or 9 PM and midnight or whatever that is.
5 to 9.
The 5 to 9, yeah, exactly. I've said before that we have tried as a state.
Wage that, it is.
Wage that was what, that was, yes, that was your response. I've said in previous testimony that we tried extensively, to use that word again, to incentivize towns to regulate their river corridors. We have tried very hard, through many different mechanisms, and we are plateaued at about 10 to 12% of towns that have done this, and that speaks to just those towns that have adopted them, not that those that are enforcing them well and actually protecting those areas from development and future damage. So at what point in time do we say the incentives are no longer working, we need to switch to a regulatory? Again, the part of the bill what I think about with respect to this part of the bill specifically, though it is definitely pervasive in the wetlands and dams parts too, are the 4 parts: the public safety, the cost of these damages, the municipal burden that we currently have them carry, and the natural resource protection itself. Hearing the recommendations, but again, not seeing them necessarily, so trying to read between the lines. I think it's fair to say that the groups that have been working on this and give good testimony from before, at least from the environmental side, would agree and acknowledge when you see 20 FTEs for a floodplain program, that is huge. And the floodplain program is very different from river corridors. It has a federal agency involved in it. It carries with the code for federal regulations, CFR, all sorts of issues and needs to meet, I think, along the way. So if we are going to phase this, I heard phase several times over, I think it would be acceptable on our end to really do the work on the floodplain side and take the time to do that. The floodplains are, again, what I define our 20% problem, that's where 20% of our damages are happening. Our river corridors cannot wait, they are our 80% problem. That needs to happen maybe as quickly as the slide behind me says. I don't know, I would rely heavily on the person behind me to say if that's even realistic. But we feel strongly that again, this is a resource, a hazard area, a cost to Vermont taxpayers that cannot wait until 2030. And again, these aren't new ideas. River corridor protections are recommended in state plan after state plan, year after year after year. Exactly as is, this exact thing is in the climate action plan. And the state has a mitigation plan and the TMDL plan for Lake Champlain and all the other plans that I've said before. Let's see, I saw on the slide, one slide, that there was a 4 FTE recommendation with respect to the river corridors. That seems like a real steal when you think about how much money and how many damages and how much life safety is at risk in the river corridor section. 20, I think, for floodplains, 4 for river corridors, I think that would be an extremely wise investment by this committee, by the General Assembly. I agree to the outreach piece. If we as a state do not do that well, we are gonna have a lot of poorly permitted, unpermitted structures that have to go through lengthy appeals process, and it will be a nightmare. And so to do this well and to actually have the outcome that we expect, I do think that we should make sure that legislation would provide for that education and outreach moment. There was a resources needed table, and I heard the secretary say I should have added a column, and I would love the opportunity to add the public safety, cost damages, municipal burden, and natural resources columns to that table based on what I see proposed. And then finally,
Feel
I'll
free to come back to the
Yeah.
table.
I'll come back when you go to the visuals are great.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna close with the Chris Campany-ism from Wyndham Regional Commission. He said several times over that rivers are inherently intermunicipal. What one town decides has direct impacts on their up, but especially downstream communities. I cannot think of a better opportunity or greater need for state level control, regulation, technical expertise of a river corridor or of a resource of a place in a state than this one. So I will read that red line edits and either come back invited for verbal testimony or submit this with you all.
Great. Thank you
Thank you.
for your first snapshot testimony. I've asked Mr. Carpenter if he could come, that will pick up at our next meeting because we only have 3 minutes left. And we have some housekeeping we have to do, so thank you, everyone, at 2:13, we have, 3 bills that we need to move in order to get them forward, and bring it back. So, on Friday, I distributed the drafts we had. And then yesterday, council finished with our first cut at the Act 50 language, so we'll have that or in the water in this room. And so I would look to the vice chair to move our committee bill so that we'll bring them back in here and continue working. 3 of them are just to remind people, housekeeping bills that this are September 1 drafted and PC1, PC2, and ANR annexations of those codes. But the 4th is the taxes of the bill for discussion. So that's here.
Would you like to do these all in one motion or four sections?
I
I,
have it as 4 separate pieces.
Okay,
yes,
so we'll do all.
yeah, that's March 22, 1.
Okay.
4, thank you.
All right, so
So we'll do that. Everyone will have hard copies of each thing.
maybe the other ones last week.
Michael Rady did an update on one of them, again. The reason I'm not worrying about the details of the language at the moment is because the point is to have them available.
Yes, so that was what I wanted to just clarify as I consider taking a vote on all 4 of these. This is not a passage of the bill as final, this is just so we can, as a committee,
Right,
actually review it as.
right. The other way I look at this is, it's a drafting deadline for committees. So we're making our drafting deadline by putting these through, then it all comes to the committee and we can continue the development. Right,
Okay, so I would move that we're finding figure or voting out to the floor.
Introducing the committee one.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I move that we introduce the committee bill and act relating to miscellaneous changes related to the Public Utility Commission.
What's the draft?
Just no, it's.
We'll have a little bit more.
On the sheet.
Oh, 644?
Also,
Okay, 0644. Right.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, 5-0-0, thank you.
You ready, please?
I
Okay, all right, so I would move that we what did we say, introduce the committee bill and act relating to changes to clean heat standard. You have, she has all the numbers.
have all the numbers, but I don't know which one each number goes with. That's my only, this one's Act 50, it would be one of these. Oh, thank you. My eyes skimmed right over. So that's that. Okay. No, so that we should have done.
Any committee discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
One opposed, 5-0-0.
I would move that we, excuse me, could you? That we
Voting, thanks.
move that we introduce the committee bill and act relating to the use of administrative use controls at contaminated sites.
Any committee discussion? None, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, 500.
And I would move that we introduce the committee bill and act related. Relating to the miscellaneous changes to Act 50.
Any discussion? None. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed, nay? 500. Thank you, everyone. We'll see those back. They'll go to the floor. You'll hear me make a motion to refer them back to committee.